What's up, mindfulness people out there? The theme of our talk today is how to feel safe in an unsafe world. And the thing is, for any kind of happiness, for any kind of feeling of, being okay, we need a certain sense of safety and security. If you don't have, a baseline of security, food-wise, shelter-wise, and, medicine-wise, it's impossible to really feel safe and at peace. And, you can just imagine the people, in war who are fleeing from Libya or Ukraine right now. You don't just leave home and, have no idea where you're going and you're just raving along with some music in your ears. This is just not what's happening, just so if you feel threatened, if there is danger, happiness cannot arise. But the problem is that the nature of life is unsafe. Everything is permanently changing. And in the back of our minds, we just know that we can, in a blink of an eye, lose our life, we can lose our health, we can lose our loved ones, we can lose our job, we can lose our, financial security and all these kind of things in no time. And we are experiencing this right now in our world. I mean, the upcoming of a virus just changed everything from one moment to the other. War can, now in the long run change everything, and everything what we know how the world is can change instantly. And so we're experiencing it, and so the question is really, how do we gain a feeling of being safe? And the first thing, and that's the most important thing, if you think about safety and security, it cannot possibly come from the outside. You can live in the most secure home, with, walls and fences and security cameras and guards and whatever, and you don't necessarily feel safe. It's, more likely the opposite. You can have a lot of guns in your home and not feel safe and feel threatened all the time. So from that, we know that the security and the safety cannot come from the outside. We need to look inside. It is an inner feeling that nothing can happen to us. And I would like to go step by step through the process with you guys now, how to achieve this feeling of absolute security and unshakable peace of your mind and heart, which means that you can live with an open heart and resting in unconditional love. Does that sound good? Okay, then this talk is for you. So, the question is, how do we get this inner feeling of safety and security? And we do it the Mindfulness Project style. We first look at the psychological factors and then at the spiritual factors. So, talking about the psychological factors. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, why do we feel unsafe in the first place? Because we're born as babies, we are most of the time just held by our parents. We get food all the time when we need it, and all this kind of stuff. So in our normal upbringing, not if you're living in disasters or war, but in a normal upbringing, where does the feeling of insecurity and unsafety come from? And so from psychological research, we know that there are genetical factors. There are some babies who come to this world with a higher degree of fears than others. That's that's a standpoint of scientific research right now. And so that's one point. And the other point are development factors. So what happens in your upbringing? And of course, there is the whole realm of trauma. The impact traumas, the one big things which happen to you, which just, takes away your grounding and your feeling of certainty and safety. But there are also development traumas, that you constantly hear that you are not right, that you're not good enough, that you should do better, that you should behave better, that you are a burden for your parents. So these are kind of not one big impact, but it's a development trauma. But then there's also the whole realm of development factors, which is our normal upbringing, not the trauma-related upbringing. Because, we grow up with the feeling that we are, most of the time, in the mercy of other people, that we depend on our parents, that we depend on our, boss, teacher, friends even, and that we are always super dependent on, what they think, feel, and want from us. This big force of parents, the big force of teachers, you rely heavily on, can leave you with this feeling of, I cannot consciously influence how my relationships with my loved ones are, how my relationship to the world is, because there are always people who have so much more power. And, that can lead you actually, the trauma, the impact trauma, the development trauma, but also this fear of being in mercy of others, can leave you with this great fear. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of not being liked, the fear of intimacy, the fear of conflicts. A lot of times it leaves you with a lot of anger, when somebody criticizes you or or speaking bad about you, or there's some kind of confrontation, that we react with anger and we feel threatened, and whenever you don't have this base of security, every small little thing can be a big threat, a little bit of criticism can just get you through the roof, with anger and stuff like this. And it can lead you with a lot of projections, that you're projecting, your own insecurities on other people, that you become manipulative. So, and the second thing, so you need to find out, what are the reasons why I feel not safe in this world, why I feel insecure. And the second thing is, you need to see what kind of coping mechanisms did I actually develop in my, this development, because it's super important. If you don't know what your coping mechanisms is, then you will more likely take reality, and your filters and your fears as reality and for granted. If you have a fear of intimacy, you might be just running away from really deep committed relationships or from friendships. You maybe search for people where everything is a little bit more superficial. You might become a people pleaser and, just always hiding your own needs and, never really going to see what do I need in this moment. And you could become somebody who avoids conflicts at all costs. You just swallow everything which is bad around you, and you're not just really speaking out for yourself. it can also lead that you become a workaholic, that you need to prove to everybody how good you are, that you're better than others, that you define yourself through success and money and status or something like this. A lot of our addictions are actually the result of fears, the result of, you know, our traumas and stuff like this. So they are coping mechanisms. And, you know, how do I, you know, deal with a fear? How do I deal with the fear of not being good enough, not being loved, and all these kind of stuff? And so the addictions of, you know, can be many, can be sports, can be work, can be drugs, can be alcohol, you know, all these kind of things. You know, there's a long list. So again, you know, see, where does my feeling of not being safe come from? What are my coping mechanisms? And the next step is that you apply mindfulness. You know, this is why we're the Mindfulness Project, because that's the key to everything in the situation. You know, what do I do? And when am I in my old story? You know, my coping mechanisms, my triggers, you know, and you need to see, okay, now I'm in it. So mindfulness is the first and most important solution. So the next one is you need to become active in choosing your environment. So have a look, you know, what people are you hanging out with? You know, which of these people are actually people who nurture me? Which are the people I feel safe around? You know, which are the people who maybe are stealing energy from me? Maybe people who, you know, put me down, and just really choose wisely. You know, can I change the relation I have with them? So maybe talk with some people, you know, just give them feedback, how you feel around them. And if you have the feeling, wait, that doesn't lead anywhere, see if you want to continue to surround yourself with people who make you weak or make you feel inferior. So you really need to do something about it. The next one is, if you feel, if your mindfulness is strong enough and you see, okay, I'm triggered now, all my coping mechanism is kicking in, you know, I have the feeling I need to protect myself, defend myself, fight back, all these kind of things, then it's actually time to stop. And the most important thing is that you, that's the third thing, act with self-compassion. So that you just really close your eyes and you take yourself into your own arms and say, okay, you know, this is my past, these are my triggers, these are my coping mechanisms, and they're there because I have experienced pain. And then try to not go to this male side of things. Okay, here's a problem, where's the solution? You know, I need to be different, then, because then you're repeating the pattern of what other people have taught you. Be better, you know, just, you know, get your shit together and la 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 la. So self-compassion is the third and the most important part, because that will trigger the healing. If you just develop, and that's the inner resource of being okay with yourself when you're not okay, that is the art of living, to say, okay, yeah, this is what we are going through. And then the next thing is, don't react in the situation. Try to, you know, be okay with not reacting, or be okay with, you know, just reacting in your old pattern. But the most important thing is have a long-term plan. And to understand that we need to look to neuroscience. And from neuroscience, we know that we can change our brain. No matter what kind of traumas we had, you know, there is a way how to influence, but you cannot do that when, you know, your brain is triggered, when your conscious brain is shut down and is saying, you know, fear is already on. That's too late to just really make a lasting change. So it's good when you're out of the situation and start to develop a long-term plan. And the plan is fear and insecurity only comes when the felt dangers are higher than the resources we inwardly have to cope with the danger. And so to give you an example, which I gave a whole talk about fear. So I link it here, no, here. So there was the story, you know, when you are in Africa, in the desert, and suddenly a lion would approach. You know, your fear and your feelings of danger would just go crazy, and you would like, okay, what should I do? What the fuck? And but in the same situation, if you would have a big gun in your hands, your fear would be much less. Probably there, but much less. The same tiger, but not in the desert, but the same tiger in a cage. You know, you would even go very close without feeling much fear, because there is the feeling, you know, I can handle the situation. So the gun or the bars are the simile for resources. You know, can I control the situation? Do I have a subjective feeling that I can cope with the situation? So that means, you know, my resources must be bigger than the danger. And what we do from their neuroscientific point of view, when we see, okay, danger seems to be overwhelming at times or a lot of times, then we try to go to the place where we deflate the danger and we try to bring the resources up. Yeah. So how do we do that? So one of the neuroscientific things, what research has shown which helps, is that you bring yourself, that's pure mindfulness again, you bring yourself to the present moment. And a lot of times, okay, we're not talking about war or something like this, but a lot of times when fear is coming up, you realize in the moment the fear is there, you know, you are actually fine. You know, your feeling of unsafety is there, but actually there's not a real danger out there. You will not die if your boss is, you know, shouting at you. You know, and it's not, you know, like a couple of years later you will see, okay, it's not a big deal. So the first thing is come to the present moment and see, okay, right now I'm okay. You know, even if you had a breakup with your partner, it's heartbreaking, it's terrible, you're crying, but you know that at one point you will be okay, and you still have a roof over your head, you still have enough to eat, your body is healthy, so you know, you will be fine. So the second thing is you sit down and you make it a habit to think about situations where you have succeeded to overcome a dangerous situation, where people have criticized you, to see, wait a second, it wasn't that bad, you know, you're not in the mercy of other people, you know, that you see and remember moments where you are able to influence this, the loving relationships you have with friends and family, that you can actually have an impact. So, you know, like in your meditation, you know, if you want to do it as a meditation, you know, sit down or write down situations where you could have coped, you know, just remember situations where you have been in deep shit, and in the end, you know, you're still fine. And, you know, when you're 51 like me, you know, you see over time, you have a lot of these moments. And, you know, you had a lot of moments where you thought your life, you know, will end now, and it didn't. And the next most important part is, and I cannot stop talking about it, is bring your mind out of the state of being a victim. You know, we have learned over time that, you know, we are a victim. It's like the elephant, you know, like when they are very young, you know, you put a tiny little chain around their leg and they just try to go away and they can't, and then they take a little stick and beat the elephant, and they, you know, just see, oh, these humans, I cannot do anything against them. And when the elephant grows and becomes super big and strong, you know, you just need a tiny little chain, and they just look at it and they say, oh, I cannot do anything, in a tiny little stick. And in reality, they could just rip the whole thing into pieces and just throw, you know, humans through the air. And, you know, we can do the same. You know, our mind, our heart has an incredible potential. You have an incredible potential, and you just don't see it, you don't access it, and that makes you become a victim of your parents, teachers, friends, your society, and whatever. Realize you are fucking free. You know, you're just amazing human beings. You can just walk out of the door and start a new life. You know, we have so many opportunities. So, and this is a training, you know, to remind yourself, to become free, to test yourself out, to, you know, widen your boundaries, and, you know, just see that you take life as an adventure. To, okay, let's see if we can overcome this also, and overcome this also. And the fourth, and this is, you know, just already the meeting point to spirituality: practice, practice, practice every single day. Gratitude. You know, your mind cannot possibly be in a very negative state when your heart is open and full of gratitude. You know, when we are aware of how much of an absolute blast this life is, you know, how fortunate we are that we can experience what we experience, even when it's, you know, if it's, you know, threatening like hell, you know, we can just see it as something, you know, just amazing. And if you just really make it a daily habit, you don't need to do 1 hour of meditation every morning. If you just sit down for 2 minutes, close your eyes, and think about what you are grateful for in this moment. Remember, in the Mindfulness Project, what was the favorite moment of your day? You know, what is it which brings joy into your life? And, you know, to just see that your partner is there for you, that you have amazing friends, that, you know, you have money, you live in a country which, you know, allows you to travel and all these kind of things. You know, just see how grateful, you know, all of you guys have traveled the world. You know, how amazing is that? So that's the fourth really, really important step. So, and now we are coming to the part of spirituality, and now it becomes really juicy, because you know, some things which are true on the psychological plane of our existence is not necessarily true of the, you know, deeper plane of existence, the unconditional realm. So on, you know, the question how to feel safe in an unsafe world. The Buddha was explaining, you know, when you build your life on things which are constantly changing, and everything does, our relationships, our health, our, you know, if we live or die, our job, our money, you know, all of these things can just instantly change, they are not stable. If you build your life on these changing things, it's like building your house on sand, you know, it will just crumble. And you know, for a lot of people it does when it comes to situation of crisis. So the most important thing is, like I said before, look inside. And what you need to do is train your mind. If you don't train your mind, if you don't learn concentration, meditation, if you don't learn the art of, you know, going away or going beyond your thoughts, going beyond your feelings, you know, you will always be bound to your feelings. You will always be bound to your mind patterns. But when you are able and you learn the art to go beyond, you know, then the things can just come and go, and your mind stays really straight and stable, and you develop mindfulness and you develop a strong sense of concentration. So again, train, you know, 5 minutes a day, but train, you know, sit down, breathe, take time to make this incredible apparatus, you know, the foundation of this feeling of peace and gratitude. Yeah, training, so that you can, you know, like in the storm, that you can come to the center, and, you know, then it's like being in the eye of the storm. You know, everything around you will, you know, just go crazy, and you can stay in the center and be, you know, there in the eye of the storm. You know, there's complete peace. This is what we try to achieve. The second thing on the spiritual level is, don't take life personal. I talked about the getting out of the victim state and just really taking life into your own hands. That's the psychological level. On the absolute level, you know, you can see life is just happening. You know, things are just coming and going. And there is, on a certain level, nothing you can do about it. So that's a contradiction to the two levels of truth. You know, when I did the tax declaration for our charity for the last 3 years, and I had to write a report of what things happened and what we did and stuff like this. And I could see that in the last 3 years we were going from one disaster to the next disaster. We had a fire which, you know, burned 1/3 of the Mindfulness Project down. Then 2 months later we had a tornado which nearly destroyed all our buildings. You know, then Corona hit us, and, you know, then suddenly everything was shut down, and then my niece died, and so on and so on. And, you know, you could ask yourself, you know, is this not the right thing I'm doing? Should I do something else? You know, is this the universe talking to me? You know, or is it my old karma or stuff like this? And when you look at it from a, you know, from a broader view, it is just like life is happening. You know, fires break out all the time. You know, you can see here the firefighters going out all the time. You know, storms can happen. You know, like a virus can happen. Don't take it personal. You know, don't overthink, oh, why does it happen to me? You know, why is this? Why is that? Life is happening, and the only question is, and there we are meeting again the psychological realm of not being a victim. The question is, how do you relate to these things? You know, how do you react to life's challenges? And it's really important that you realize that in every moment you can choose how you relate to the things on the outside. Depends on your mind training. And what always inspires me so much is the psychologist who survived the concentration camp Auschwitz, which was the worst place to be on earth. And he was actually writing a book afterwards, which is called in German, I don't know if it's the English title, Say Yes to Life Anyway. And in his book, he's writing, even though conditions such as lack of sleep, insufficient food, and various mental stresses may suggest that the inmates of the concentration camp were bound to react in certain ways. In the final analysis, it becomes clear that the sort of person the prisoners became was the result of an inner decision and not the result of camp influences alone. So even in a concentration camp, you can choose what person you want to become. And if you just realize that, then, on a deeper level, things will start to change tremendously. Because a lot of times I'm, still in this victim mode. Oh, I'm so sad and depressed right now because my parents did this and that, or why is Anya not behaving in a different way, and la la la. Not seeing that I just put the responsibility for my reactions, for my feelings, for my thoughts into the hands of other people. I'm doing this. And not realizing that a lot of times it's just my filter and my filter and my filter. So take the responsibility to yourself and just really decide who you want to be on the deepest level. And then you will realize, and this is the message of all spiritual teachers, that if you just really look, you probably come to the point where you see, I want to live a life with an open heart. I want to live a life which is, rested in peace and love and, nothing else. And that's, I think, our longing. This is why we sit on the meditation cushion. This is why we feel, this is why you have probably come to the Mindfulness Project, because you feel there is something which is so much deeper and so much worth living for. Okay? And the next thing is that when you go into deeper states of meditation, a feeling of deep peace and a feeling of nothing can ever happen to me evolves naturally. Because when you really start to go to the deeper dimensions of spirituality, you have experiences of, it's not this body, it's not the mind and heart, this is just conditioned by my upbringing, by my trauma, by the genes of my father and my mother. This is not who I am. But that consciousness is something so much bigger, and that this consciousness will not disappear when we die. That in Buddhism we call it the unconditioned. That there is a plane of existence where beginning and ends are just ideas we have in our head. And that you start to look at life more from a much, much broader perspective. That you can even see the history of humans, this coming and going, all the empires rising and falling, all these religions coming and going, all these things are not so important. The only importance is, what do you do with this given life? And the ultimate question is, on a spiritual level, am I able to love and give love to other people or not? Is it self-centered, or is it centered around community, the whole, the bigger picture? This is why we sit, this is why we thrive. And that kind of realm where you feel that the illusion of separation is just not what life is all about, But, you know, when you become nothing, you become everything, is one of the Buddhist teachings. When you become nothing, when your borders, your limitations will fall away in your meditation, then you merge into everything. And this is ultimate peace, this is ultimate freedom. You know, this is the state of mind where nothing can actually shake this, you know, centered, peaceful, loving being. So I hope, you know, I'll post a meditation about safety and security next week, and I hope we all go into the practice, that we all do it together, that we can bring more peace. And remember, our theme is the poem of Francis of Assisi, you know, "Oh Lord, make me an instrument of your peace." So I hope we all become an instrument for peace. I hope we can all love and care and share. That's my prayer. Thank you.